Welcome to the deep dive. You're here because, well, you want to get smart on the stuff that matters without wading through tons of research, right?
We get it. You want the key info, the insights, maybe focus on things that actually grab your attention.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today. You've shown some interest in the science of learning, so we've dug into this really fascinating study about just that. How does learning get better when it connects to what you find interesting?
And we're not just looking at one study. To give you the best picture, we dove into a meta-analysis.
Uh, right. Explain that quickly.
Sure. Think of it like instead of one person's opinion, a meta-analysis looks at lots of studies on the same topic, dozens, sometimes hundreds, and combines their results. It gives you a much more reliable overview.
Like getting the average result from many, many attempts.
Precisely. In this case, it's pooling research on personalized learning based on interest.
And the specific one we're looking at, it's called the Personalized Learning by Interest Effect on Interest, Cognitive Load, Retention, and Transfer, a meta-analysis. Bit of a mouthful.
Huh? Yeah, academic titles. But it was published in Educational Psychology Review just last year, August 2024.
And the key thing here, for you listening, is the scale. It synthesizes findings from 34 different publications.
Yeah, covering data from, well, over 12,000 participants across the different analyses. That's a lot of data on how interest impacts learning.
So our mission here is basically to unpack what all that research says. When learning is tailored to your interests, what actually happens?
Does it, make you pay more attention? Does it feel easier or maybe harder mentally?
Do you remember it better? And maybe the most important part, can you actually use that knowledge later?
Exactly. The meta-analysis focused on four main things. Your interest level itself, cognitive load,
Yeah,
that's basically how hard your brain's working,
gotcha.
retention, so memory, and transfer, which is applying what you learned.
And you mentioned before we started some findings are maybe not what you'd expect.
Yeah, a couple of interesting wrinkles, like you might think learning about something you love would feel effortless,
Totally. Like it should just sink in.
right? But this research suggests, well, sometimes connecting learning to your interests can actually make you think harder.
Okay, intriguing. Let's start with the first one then. Does learning stuff tailored to your interests actually make you more interested? What did they find?
Well, on that point, the answer is a pretty solid yes. The meta-analysis found what they called a medium to large effect on self-reported interest.
Okay, medium to large. What does that mean in practical terms?
So they used this statistic, G, and it was 0.55 here. In educational research, that size of effect is generally seen as, meaningful. It's not just a tiny bump. It's a noticeable increase in engagement for the learner, a real-world difference.
That makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? Like, if you're into space, learning physics through examples about rocket trajectories is probably way more engaging than just abstract formulas.
Absolutely. But it wasn't always the same effect size. They looked at factors that could make it stronger or weaker. Moderators, they call them.
Ah, right. So what kind of things change how much your interest gets boosted?
Well, one was the diagnostic approach. Basically how they figured out your interests in the first place.
You mean like asking broad questions versus specific ones?
Exactly. Was it just a general survey? Do you like science? Or did they drill down more? Like, what about science interests you? How well they pinpointed your specific interest seemed to matter for how effective the personalization was.
Okay, that tracks. A vague match isn't as good as a specific one. What else?
Another one was grain size.
Green size.
Yeah, think of it as the level of detail. Are they matching your interest at a broad topic level, like choosing history or science? Or are they getting really specific, tailoring examples within a lesson or even the wording to things you're keen on?
So, like, the difference between you like sports, here's a math lesson, versus you like baseball stats, so let's use those to explain averages.
Precisely that. The research suggests that the finer the grain size, the more specific the match to your interest, the bigger the boost in your engagement.
Makes sense. More tailored feels more relevant. Any other key moderators for interest?
The last main one was the domain, which is just the subject area. Personalizing math might work differently than personalizing, say, language arts. Some subjects might just lend themselves more easily to incorporating diverse interests.
Right. Okay, so lesson one. Connecting learning to interests definitely boosts interest, especially if it's done specifically. But now let's tackle that surprising bit you mentioned, cognitive load.
Yes, this is really interesting. They also found a medium to large effect, G equals 0.54, on cognitive load, meaning personalization by interest increased how much mental effort people reported using.
Which sounds backwards. If I'm interested, shouldn't it feel
Right.
easier, less taxing.
That's the gut reaction, yeah. But think about it. When you're really interested, what do? You don't just skim the surface.
No, you dive in deeper, I guess. Ask more questions.
Exactly. You might grapple with more complex aspects of the topic, make more connections to things you already know. You're more willing to put in the mental work because you're genuinely engaged.
So the effort isn't because the material is suddenly harder, but because I'm choosing to engage with it more deeply.
That seems to be the idea. Your interest fuels more active, effortful processing. It's like tackling a challenging crossword puzzle about a topic you love versus one you don't care about. The one you love might feel demanding, but you're motivated to persist.
Okay, that reframes it. It's not necessarily a bad kind of cognitive load. It could be productive effort.
Potentially, yes. The kind of effort that leads to deeper understanding, which is consistent with, established ideas like cognitive load theory. Interest might push you into that more demanding, but ultimately more fruitful learning zone.
Fascinating. So more effort, potentially. But does that deeper engagement translate into remembering things better? What about retention?
Good question. And yes, the meta-analysis found a medium effect on retention. The effect size was G equals 0.48.
So a decent improvement in memory? That feels more expected.
It does. Generally, if you're more engaged and processing more deeply because of interest, it makes sense you'd remember it better.
Were there moderators here too? Things that influenced how well people remembered?
Yes, a couple stood out. One was quite unexpected, actually.
Right.
The effect on retention varied depending on the learner's continent.
Really? Like where they were geographically. Why would that matter?
Well, the study didn't definitively answer why, but they observed differences. It suggests there might be cultural or educational system factors influencing how interest translates to memory. It's something they flagged as needing more research.
Huh. Okay, that's definitely an area to watch. What was the other factor for retention?
The other was the type of study design. They found the effect was larger in quasi-experimental studies compared to purely experimental ones.
Okay, quick definition. Quasi-experimental versus experimental.
Sure. Experimental studies usually involve tight controls, random assignment to groups, often in a lab. Think classic psych experiment. Quasi-experimental studies are often done in more real-world settings, like classrooms. They might compare groups, but without that strict random assignment.
So the memory boost from interest-based learning was stronger in those more realistic classroom-like settings.
That's what it looks like, yeah. It could be that in the real world, the personalization feels more authentic, or maybe happens over a longer period. It suggests the benefits for memory might be even more pronounced outside the lab.
That's encouraging for practical application. Okay, so it boosts interest, might increase productive effort, helps memory.
Hmm.
What about the final piece? Transfer. Using the knowledge later.
Right. Transfer is kind of the ultimate goal, isn't it? Taking what you learned and applying it somewhere new. Here, they also found a medium effect. G equals 0.36.
So positive again, people were better able to apply knowledge learned through their interests.
Yes. Suggesting that interest-based learning doesn't just help you memorize, it helps you build more flexible, usable knowledge.
But I think you mentioned there was a caveat here.
You're right. It's important to note this finding on transfer was based on fewer studies. Only 6 effect sizes were included in that specific analysis.
Ah, okay. So the evidence is pointing in the right direction, but the pool of studies is smaller for this particular outcome.
Exactly. The authors highlighted it as an area where more research would be really valuable to get a clearer picture. The initial signs are promising, but it needs more investigation.
Got it. Promising, but maybe needs a bit more evidence.
Now, before we sum up, there was that point about something they didn't include. Learning styles. Yes. Very important point. They explicitly stated they didn't analyze learning styles.
Oh.
The whole visual, auditory, kinesthetic learner idea.
Why not? It's such a popular concept.
Because, as they put it, it has a controversial status in educational psychology. There's actually very little robust scientific evidence supporting the idea that tailoring teaching to a preferred style improves learning outcomes.
So, despite being widely talked about, the research just doesn't back it up strongly.
Pretty much. While people might prefer information presented a certain way, the idea that they learn better that way is not well supported. So the meta-analysis focused on interest, which has much stronger evidence behind it as a driver of motivation and learning.
Right. Focus on what the science actually shows works. Okay, let's try and pull this all together then. What are the main takeaways for someone listening?
Okay, so for you, the listener, the big picture seems to be,
Yeah.
yes, linking learning to your interests. Generally a really good idea.
It definitely boosts your engagement, makes it more enjoyable.
Right. And it seems to help you remember the information better and potentially helps you apply it later, although more research is needed there.
But, and this is the interesting twist, be prepared that it might actually feel like more mental work sometimes.
Exactly. But that extra effort might actually be a good sign, a sign you're processing it more deeply because you're genuinely invested.
And remember, the effects aren't always uniform. How your interests are identified, how specifically the material is tailored.
The subject matter itself, maybe even cultural context.
Hmm.
These things can influence how well it works. It's nuanced.
So the context really matters. It's not a magic bullet, but a powerful principle.
Well put.
So for everyone listening, maybe the final thought is this. Considering these findings, how could you be more intentional about weaving your own interests into how you learn?
Yeah, think about what genuinely sparks your curiosity. What topics make you want to know more?
And if you lean into those interests when learning something new, whether for work, study, or just personal growth, what benefits might you expect now? Maybe more engagement.
Better memory, potentially better application down the line.
But also, maybe be ready for it to feel a bit challenging sometimes in a good way, knowing that the effort might be because you're digging deeper.
Exactly. How could that awareness change how you approach learning things you're passionate about? Could that interest help you push through the challenging parts?
It's definitely something to reflect on. This meta-analysis gives a great snapshot based on research up to mid-2024.
Absolutely. But learning science is always evolving. Hopefully this dive gives you some practical insights and encourages you to keep exploring how to make your own learning journey more effective and, honestly, more enjoyable by following what interests you.